This episode of Test Drive is brought to you by Prevent a Lemon, your premier nationwide used car inspection service.
Well, folks, you asked and you shall receive. You've been asking for pretty much 2 years now for more classic Mercedes-Benz and BMW cars. And as much as we'd like to have produced it, it's been a little slow since moving here to Quebec. But luckily, we've got something for you today. Our spotlight is on this 2003 Mercedes-Benz CLK55 AMG. Now, this car was produced from 2002 until 2006, and you could have got this CLK63 AMG. But this is a 5.4 liter, non-supercharged V8 engine producing 362 horsepower at about 5,700 RPM and 376 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. Now, when it was new, this car would do 0 to 100 kilometers in 4.7 seconds. This car, today's standards, is still insanely fast. So we're going to be showing you everything about this car, taking it on the road, and going over everything you need to know if you're in the market for a 15-year-old high-performance luxury car. Now, this is a very interesting car because the front end certainly looks like an E-Class. This would be technically the E-Class Coupé. But the reality is it's actually based on the W203 C-Class's platform. So it's got the look of it, but it really is more of like a C-Class. So it's up to you to decide whether it was the two-door version of an E-Class or really a two-door version of the C-Class, even though they did make a small coupé of that for the W203. But this car has a chassis code of C209, and the year later, 2003, when they came out with the Cabriolet, it was an A209. I'm sure the Mercedes enthusiasts there already know that, but again, because it is kind of like a W211, kind of like a W203, really, in reality, from a Mercedes-Benz legal perspective, this is a C209. Now let's talk about the exterior of this car. First off, up front, really does have a very similar design language really to the W203. It has the same sort of headlights up front, because the W211 was quite different on the front. You have Bi-Xenon headlamps, and really that's it. You've got fog lamps at the bottom and nothing else. This car is about as base as you can get, and it's interesting because this car base in the US when it was new was around $69,000 US. Here in Canada, this car, we've got the window sticker for it, $99,000. It's expensive. Now, the US price adjusted for inflation would have been about $95,000 in today's money. And if you think about it, the 2019 E-Coupe doesn't exist yet, at least for the AMG model, but a 2018 E63 AMG sedan is $104,400 US. So it still is kind of within the same ballpark, considering it really is the evolution of that car. But again, let's talk about the front. You've got Bi-Xenon headlamps there, and about it. If you look at a modern car today, especially a modern AMG car, you're going to have tons of tech. But that's essentially it. You've got headlight washers, fog lights. That's it. There's nothing else on the front of this car, but that's what makes it special because it really is more connected to the road. And I think that's what's cool about it. But again, it's all original, looks really good. And because there isn't a whole lot else to talk about on the front, we'll jump to the back and then we can jump in and show you what's on the inside. So as mentioned, this really is the base for a CLK55 at this time. But again, you still get quite a lot of car for it. Around back, again, looks very similar, almost more to the W204 Mercedes C-Class. If you take a look at the video we did on the C63 AMG for that, the taillights are a little bit more similar, certainly a lot more similar to the E-Class of the same generation. But I like it. I mean, it's got a really good look. It looks like a two-door version of the E-Class, even though it is a CLK. And I'm glad that Mercedes has changed things up now. Now it is an E63 AMG. If it's a coupe or a sedan or a wagon, makes it a little bit more simpler, especially if you don't know. But I think that this is a really nice looking rear end. But that's about it. If you had the Cabriolet version of this car, it would come down. Obviously, it's a 3-stage system that would come down a soft top, not a hard top. And you can actually use it at 8 miles per hour. Very interesting that you can actually use it from the fob or from inside. And you can be driving very slowly to be able to do that. But the back end really is simpler here. CLK55 on the left, AMG on the right. Certainly that's changed for modern cars today, but it's pretty clean. It looks really good. But now it's time to jump inside and talk about what we're looking at for the inside of this vehicle. Now, I've actually had the pleasure of driving both the W203, W204 C-Class AMG models, as well as the W211 E-Class, not the AMG, but really it's the same kind of thing as the AMG. So this does feel tighter, certainly for a big guy like me. It's not an ideal size, so this really does feel more like a C-Class. a lot more like the W203 C-32 AMG that we featured a little while ago. And even the interior layout is a little bit more similar to that than it was to the E-Class. But again, that's not a problem. If you're buying this car, especially if you bought it new for 100 grand, you're looking more for the performance. And with that engine up front, I gotta say, you're gonna be blasting through the streets, no problem. But going over some of the features here, again, for a car in 2003, you've got quite a bit of kit. You do have HomeLink built into your mirror here, and if you are using it today, you might need to have a HomeLink repeater, something that we've had to do at TestDrive, where the garage doors are newer, they're using a different code for HomeLink, so you might need to get something for that, but it does have it, which is cool. We've got the Mercedes key system, which we've seen on a lot of their models. They've really been using it up until recently. You stick it in there, still have to use it to turn it on. It's not a keyless entry system on this that you'd have to go up to something like the CL600, CL55 AMG to get that. But let's go through everything a little bit slowly so that we get everything. Cluster here is an AMG cluster. It's relatively straightforward, almost completely analog, except for the little computer in the center to tell you something like if your brake lights are out. You've got your steering wheel with pages to be able to switch between your different menus, volume controls and phone controls. To the left of the steering wheel, you've got your mirror controls and light controls with your electronic parking brake. And then the center here, again, there's not a whole lot to go over, but you do have heated seats. You do have a rear sunshade, power sunshade that comes up, which is nice to have with the sunroof up top. So if you want to make things a little cozier in here, you certainly could. ESP for your traction control, lock button, headrests to be able to release those. And really, you're not going to be putting a lot of people in the back of this car. Anyway, even though the space back there is actually not too bad, certainly a lot more than something like the BMW M2 that we just did. And then you've got the basic radio. Now, I'm sure you could have upgraded to have Mercedes COMAND. I know in 2004, they added the DVD-based system for COMAND Navigation, so it could have been an option, but realistically, it would have been out of date by today's standards anyway, so the regular radio works just fine. You've got HVAC controls at the bottom, dual zone automatic climate control. You've got a cup holder that comes out, very Mercedes-like, where it's over-engineered. Glove box to the right, and then that's about it. The dashboard is pretty straightforward. The interior here is straightforward. Everything is relatively simple for a vehicle of this age, but I gotta say, it really is nice, especially sitting in it. I feel comfortable. The seats are comfortable, really supportive. You do have controls on the side for things like lumbar, so you can adjust it quite a bit, and the visibility overall is fantastic, especially when you drop the rear windows, because this car has a pillarless system, just like the BMW 8 Series we featured. The rear windows will go down to keep an entirely open cavern here with your front windows. It looks really cool, especially when it's not like 0 degrees when we're filming this. But I am cold, and we want to take this car on the road because really that's what this car is about. I can talk about all the features all you want, but you really want to see how it performs by today's standards on the road. So let's hop in, take it for a drive, and go over that. Now, before we go on our road test with this car, I want to talk to you about our pals. Prevent a Lemon is your premier nationwide used car inspection service dedicated to protecting buyers and helping them find their next ride, like this Mercedes-Benz CLK55 AMG. Each inspection offers a 170-plus checkpoint assessment, including test driving the vehicle, scanning the subsystems, and a personal consultation if you choose to do so. Find out more at preventalemon.com/testdrive. All right, you guys are interested to see how this car performs. Again, it's actually similar horsepower. If you watched our episodes both on the Genesis G70 and Kia Stinger, power is pretty similar to that, but this is a V8, so it should feel better. There's no turbo lag, and we're going to give it a rip right here because you guys like that. We are in sport mode. I'm going to keep traction on, but we will go from a dig at full throttle. Oh, yeah. Oh, buddy. 100. Wow. Oh man, if you guys were hoping for an extreme launch there, I hope that was what you were expecting. Like, holy crap, that's what an AMG should be now. We're going to put it back in comfort mode because that was the fun for the day. We're going to now talk about the rest of the car, but wow, you guys wanted me to drive the C55 AMG after we did the C43 and the C32, and I think that you're going to have similar experience with this car as the C55 AMG, but whoa, that was incredible speed there. And it feels good too. I mean, you lose a little bit of the rear end because it's rear wheel drive, but man, it shifted really well. It just went, and we got a lot of lag actually on the computer screen more than anything else, just for it to catch up to get to 100. But If that was not in the ballpark of like 5.5, I'd be very surprised. There's two people in the car here. You guys always remind me how big I am. Car's not brand new, so it's not going to perform the way that it did back in 2003, doing 4.7 seconds, 0 to 60 in the US, 0 to 100 here, but that was pretty quick. So let's talk about the car on the road here. I love AMG cars. I love the way that Mercedes builds these vehicles because they just feel both luxurious and performance oriented at the same time. You don't usually get that with a lot of cars. It feels so tight. The steering here, just responsive yet very heavy, like you would expect a Mercedes to be. It's not wishy-washy. It goes where you want it to go. Same thing with the suspension. It is a little firmer than you might expect, considering it is a coupe and it is a AMG model. It is going to be a little harsher than you might be used to, but it is performance-oriented harsh. It's not anything to be concerned about. And I have to say that I am liking the ride already. Just driving it up the street here reminds me right away that it's an AMG, and even the sound too. Didn't quite hear it too much probably on your microphone here, but it does have a good sound, completely original as well. That's what I like about these cars, because if you watched our episode that we did on the 2006, 2007 M3, the competition, that car sounded, I know we didn't drive it, but that car did not sound very good. It just had a very muted sound to it, and BMW at that time wasn't really putting a lot of good exhausts on their cars, but I gotta say that this one sounds quite nice. And that's what I like about this generation of Mercedes, because first of all, they are classic. I mean, 16 years, 15 years old now, but people don't necessarily know what the 55s represent, but oh man, just power forever. And it just goes, like that was one full, I don't know, we were in third maybe? It just kept going up until, there's no red line, it was roughly around 6,000. It's not actually red on the cluster here, but it sounds good and it just pulls. Man, this car would be a fantastic daily driver, even in the winter. Who cares? Just get some snow tires on it, put some chains if you need them. Just drive this car year round. But just that growl, ooh. You know what? A lot of people talk about it in our comments. I talk about it with our fans as we're talking, just kind of off the show. But when it comes to a lot of these cars, a lot of the new cars, because BMW, Mercedes, Audi, everybody's going with smaller engines with turbocharging, twin turbocharging, like a Volvo with a twin charge, supercharge and turbocharge, you lose a little bit of what made these cars special before. And that's the thing. This car with a naturally aspirated V8 engine just sounds incredible. And it goes too. We're going to be losing that. We're losing that already. I mean, look at the AMGs today. They're going for smaller engines, twin turbo setups. You're not going to be able to get something like this. That's why these cars are going to be appreciating a lot more in value as time goes on, because the people who really want a driving experience, not so much just to be able to show off, but they want a car that performs as well as it looks and actually feels like a performance car, you're going to be looking at these old cars. So if you don't have one already, you can pick something up like this for dirt cheap. Maybe it's not going to be in the best shape, but if you work on it, you fix it up, and make it real pretty, then you will love it, because I'm telling you right now, this is a nice feeling car. We'll take it for a quick rip again. Just look at that. Endless power. Oh boy. And it's smooth too. You talk about turbocharging, and it's a little harsh sometimes, especially with turbo lag. It'll kind of kick a little bit. But this car is just smooth power all the way from around 1,500 where you're coasting up to 6,000. Smooth, smooth, smooth. The same with transmission as well. It just shifts almost as if it wasn't even there. That's what I just love about the way a Mercedes handles, drives, and is engineered. It really is above the rest. And if you haven't driven a car like this, do it. Get out there, go on whatever your classified site is, take a look and find something like this, because you will not be disappointed.
I talked about our pals at Prevent a Lemon just before the big-ass burnout that the owner asked us to film before our driving segment, and something like that highlights one of the reasons why we always recommend you have a vehicle that you're looking to purchase inspected by a trusted mechanic. The third act of our classic car episodes focus on a quick buyer's guide on the car that we're featuring, and lucky for us, a PAL client used their service on a CLK55 AMG C209, so we've got some additional information that we can go over. Now, this car in question had 114,000 miles on it, and the seller was asking $6,000 US for it. But things like a missing set of keys, worn out tires, a broken glove box hinge, and some interior wear and tear are items that you actually might have noticed going around on your own. But something like the valve cover leaking oil or the trunk leaking water behind the deck lid liner are things that PAL caught, and they estimated up to $2,000 worth of repairs needed on top of that purchase price. So any of these old classic cars are going to have issues, but with the German luxury and performance models you need to pay special care. As far as I can tell, the non-supercharged M113 engine, like the one in this car, is about as bulletproof as you can expect from an AMG engine. Aside from regular maintenance and oil changes, you'll want to check to see if any additional work has been done, like gaskets or work to the emissions and exhaust system. Also, a camshaft adjuster solenoid might give you some fault codes, but a fix like that appears to be simple and inexpensive. The 5G-tronic transmission was offered on the CLK-Class from 1998 until 2005. When the 2005 CLK500 was upgraded, it got the 7G-tronic, but the 4 cylinders and 55 AMG models continued to use the 5G-tronic until the end of series production. If the transmissions aren't serviced properly or poorly maintained, you'll end up with trouble on either version. Aside from that, though, we can't find any major faults with the C209 CLK-Class Mercedes-Benz. If you're in the market with a smaller 4-cylinder option, we'd recommend skipping those and going for a V6 or V8, as the smaller engines are underpowered for the size of this car. AMGs aren't necessarily a rare sight, but they are the most desirable from a collectability perspective and obviously from a driving experience as far as enthusiasts go. The CLK55 AMG was produced as model years 2003 to 2005 for the North American market, and from 2006 until 2009 as the CLK63 AMG, which features the highly regarded 6.2-liter M156 AMG V8. Starting with the C207 in 2010, Mercedes integrated the naming convention into the E-Class and dropped the CLK lettering completely. But no matter how you slice it, if you feel this car competes more with the E46 BMW M3 than it would have the E63 M6, it's still an interesting part of Mercedes AMG history, and one that we're really glad the chance to have experienced and produced for you. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and make sure you share it online and get active within our community here through commenting or clicking that thumbs up button. We're into the winter months now as we wrap up Season 3 of Test Drive, and we didn't get the chance to drive and feature as many classics as we would have liked to. I want to make sure that for our next season of Test Drive we can get into more classic cars like this 2003 Mercedes-Benz CLK55 AMG, and interest in them is ever growing. Reach out to me online through social media if you have something you'd like to share with our community. We're based in the eastern part of Quebec, but we're hoping as this show grows that we'll have more opportunities to film on location. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.